God help you. So we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that.
Hey everyone, my name is Andre Walton, the Southeast Regional Organizer for OWR, and welcome to The Revolution. Today my guest is a candidate for Wisconsin State Senate District, Joni Anderson. How are you doing today, Joni?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good, just trying to keep myself up with all the protesting and still having Trump in office, but I guess with the circumstances, I'm holding up okay. But yeah, I mean, let's get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for office?
Okay, well, I live in Adams, Wisconsin, and for the last 27 years I worked in a factory. I grew up in the country on a little dairy farm and up in Spirit, Wisconsin. I graduated from Tomahawk High School and went on to River Falls with the dream that I was going to do big things in that, and couldn't find a job. Mm-hmm. So I ended up working for minimum wage for quite a few years, and when I couldn't pay my bills on $3.25 an hour at the time, I had to do something. So I moved and found a job at this factory, and it was a union job. And even though I wasn't intending to stay there for the rest of my life, that's where I stayed.
Yeah, sometimes you just fall into the right thing.
And it was a union job. It had protections, raises, insurance, pension at the time. But one of the reasons I decided to run for Senate 14 is because over the years I saw all the differences, all the changes in the labor laws, and because I was involved on all different levels of the union, even as a delegate to our national convention. I heard different stories throughout the country, and they trained you on how to become involved in the political process, and they were right there with you step by step. And I just believe that it's not enough to go out and vote. Mm-hmm. You need to take actions, and I'm not one that can sit on the sidelines and be quiet. And if I don't like how something's being done or how someone is being treated, I tend to speak up.
We appreciate it, and thanks for running. So I guess it's pretty safe to say that your union background has given you place to have that policy platform that you have, and it's a very robust platform, very simple but robust, and it's very workers' rights and oriented, and I really like that. Can you tell us a little bit about your workers' rights positions?
When I ran for president when the local was looking for new leadership, and it was right after that year, at the end of that year, that right to work was actually passed, and it was during the year before that, the public workers union rights were stripped away. So I was right there, just starting to get involved when all that happened, and I learned how to go out and talk to people and listen to them, because once right to work came into effect, even though it didn't affect our local right away, it was different. Mm-hmm. And you either have to meet it head on, because if you try to avoid it, it's just going to eat you alive. And it's there to split unions. It's there to split people in the workplace, to keep you from getting raises, and just essentially to make you a weaker voice so that you don't see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, is it like a $15 minimum wage, unionization rights, or how do you position that policy-wise?
Oh, I definitely believe we need that, especially with the pandemic showing who is essential out there, the grocery workers, the fast food people. These people are low-wage workers, no benefits. If there is benefits, they're very, very low. And I've worked in those situations, not in a grocery store, but I've worked in fast food, and so I know how hard you work. It's not an easy job, And people deserve $15 an hour working in whatever job they're at. But it's showing us who is the important workers. I got paid when I was leaving. I was getting paid a little over $19 an hour. But you need to be able to count on paying your bills, paying a house payment, paying a your rent, medical insurance,
Exactly. And that brings me to another point. Well, we obviously see the fallout of the COVID crisis and how healthcare is tied to the employer, and we see how that works out. Almost 40 million people are about to lose their jobs and out of their work, and it's safe to say that those people were probably going to lose their healthcare as well. And not only does it's not very smart to have it tied to employers, because if you lose your job, you lose your healthcare, but it also stagnates wages. If employers have to pay a whole bunch of money into the healthcare system, they're less likely to pay their employees the amount they're worth. So, I mean, what is your position on healthcare as far as it goes?
I believe we need a healthcare coverage that covers everybody. That's not connected to work. The people in my own plant, when they decided that they were no longer essential, I was lucky. I was retiring, but there are people there that are going to probably be off of work and through August, September, and they've been out of work since April. Now the company paid their portion for the first 2 months, but after those 2 months, people are either going to be without insurance or paying the full cost through COBRA.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's the big reason why we definitely need a healthcare for all system. It's just downright inhumane what's happening right now. But to kind of switch gears a little bit, you talked about growing up on a farm, and I think that always brings a different perspective than somebody like myself who grew up in the city. And you get a nature's perspective. Can you talk about how that drew your perspective on the environment, and can you talk about your environmental policies?
Sure. I grew up on a little farm in Spirit, Wisconsin, 20 miles from any town. We had a little river, trout stream, back of our barn, and we swam in there. We fished. We waded. We just did anything that you could think of in the water, and we enjoyed ourselves. And it was clean. You could see through to the bottom, And just growing up on the farm and being able to walk the paths and be independent and see the animals and the nature and how it all comes together, how important all the environmental, the nature, the water, how important that is all to everything. Clean water in Wisconsin is a big issue. Especially, you have these big corporate farms now that they need better, stronger protections. The people, especially the ones that live right around these farms, they don't have to have the same policies for protections as homeowners do. They don't have to have the oversight. So, and with no hardly any groundwater policies, they've all been taken away since Foxconn started involved, because first it was just Foxconn, then it was all the groundwater policies. You need to have better protections. You need to have a watch over what happens with big businesses, with their pollution aspects. You can't just let them go forever and put their waste where they want to put it. So
yeah, and one of the things Mike always talks about, because he grew up on a farm as well, is that there's contamination in the water, and people they can't drink from their faucets because it's contaminated from the factory farm. So I think we definitely need to address that issue. Contaminated water is not just an issue in the city; it's an issue in the rural areas as well. Switching gears a little bit. One of the policies that I don't see many people talk about, but I like that. I seen it on your website. Is you talked about automatic voter registration. I find it highly interesting. Can you tell us a little bit how that would work?
Well, there are only a few states that actually have automatic voter registration, but it means like if I move from where I am right now to another portion, say up on the other side of Highway J, which is just a couple miles from me, I would be voting someplace else. I would have to re-register. But my voting registration would follow me. It has been shown in the states that have it that voting people, the votes are much increased. I was looking one up on the internet earlier. There was like 55,000 more votes. And I mean, that's a big difference, and it makes it so much easier for you to vote. You don't have to worry about, am I in a different voting district or am I not? Where do I vote? You're right there. You know what you have to do because your registration came with you.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about that. It takes the extra step out and it brings in more democracy, and that's what we need. Yep. More people involved in the political system. Another policy that I seen on your website that obviously I found intriguing is your stance on marijuana. We know that continuing to certify marijuana on the Schedule I drug leads to overpopulation and incarceration. It also hurts communities of color disproportionately to white communities. Can you talk about how you came to that stance and what type of benefits will come as a result of legalizing marijuana?
Well, for one, as you mentioned, you won't have all the people in prison and jails and that are there just because they had just a little bit of an ounce, or maybe they got pulled over on a traffic violation and they were tested and they tested positive. When I first started thinking about medicinal marijuana to legalization of marijuana, my sister had cancer and she could never ever get the right amount of pain medication because she didn't have control over it. Where you have medicinal marijuana, you have control over your own pain medicine. You know when you need it. You know how much you need. From there, the next step is recreational. You see these states around us, Michigan, Illinois. They've all got recreational marijuana, and it's not only a big tax, a lot of tax money for the states, but it's also, to me, it's no different than somebody who goes out and has a drink once or twice a week. That's just your choice. The legalization of marijuana, your choice to go out and have a little marijuana rather than the alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we know that alcohol has worse effects on the human body and physiology than marijuana. So it's really no argument to keep it illegal besides, some old way of thinking. So yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that you have that stance. And I think a big reason why we don't see a lot of policies not addressed, such as water quality, legalization of marijuana, healthcare, is because of the influence of money in politics. And it really is the root of all political evil, in my opinion. Can you talk about your stance on money in politics and how we could reduce that influence?
Well, you need to make people aware of just how much it is actually affecting Wisconsin's politics. When I first actually started looking into running for office, the first figure I heard was $500,000 if I wanted to run a good campaign. $500,000 just to go to Madison.
And that's a local election.
Yes. So, I mean, and my first thought was right off the bat is that's why people don't run. They get told that figure, and it's like, I can't do that. There's no way I can raise that kind of money. And then you have the money that comes out of state that doesn't have to declare where they came, how much it was. I have to declare everything all of mine. Why should there be money coming in out of state to different politicians in a different party a lot of times, but it's not always a different party. It's both parties that are doing it. Both parties are collecting money from big corporations, and it determines how those politicians vote. And you need people down in Madison and out in Washington that are going to decide that they're going to stand on their own 2 feet, that they're not going to take this kind of money, and they're going to be out there working to make sure it stays out of our elections, out of our judicial system.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's what we really have to address to fix a lot of the issues that we're fighting for as progressives. So I'm really interested in your campaign. I hope other people are. How can people get involved and help you out?
Well, they can contact me through my Facebook page, Joni Anderson for Senate 14, or my website, Joni for Senate 14. I will need people to help fundraise down the road here. I mean, because if I'm going to have a chance at winning, I'm going to have people step forward and help me raise money so I can get my name out there, have signs, do radio contacts. That's just the way it is right now. Someone wants to be on my campaign, contact me through there, through the website or Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm urging people to donate as well. This is how we keep politicians from selling out. If we support them and make sure they're grassroots funded, this is how we hold them accountable and keep them on our side. But is there anything else you want to mention before we end the interview?
I really can't think of anything off the top of my head except that, volunteer. Volunteer to help if not my campaign, volunteer to help somebody else. Because people need other people to step forward and become involved.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can find her on Facebook. You can find her on our website. Definitely go check her out and help get a progressive in office.
Thank you.
No problem.
So we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.